Welcome to the start of a new week here on the Morning Pit, youtube.com/PantherLairCom. We're ready to go. Week 3 of these Morning Pit videos, and it's been a lot of fun so far. I appreciate everybody who's been checking in. Our last Morning Pit last week was really kind of our post-game show from very late at night after the Backyard Brawl, and I think most of us have finally recovered from that late night. But we're back into our morning grind, releasing these videos every morning. You know the deal. We just kind of get you up to speed on everything you need to know to go into the day. Used to be we did the weekly recap video every Monday morning where that would give you everything you need to know for the week. Well, now we do one every day to give you everything you need to know for that particular day. And in this case, it is Monday, so we are sort of recapping from the weekend. And as I was sort of putting this together, I was getting excited about what we're going to be able to do every week. I mean, I've got notes on notes. I've got multiple legal pads going here. I've got box score. I mean, we've got stuff all over the place. I better find the one that I wanted to hold on to. We got stuff all over the place when it comes to things to talk about, because we got, some final thoughts on Pitt's last game, on the Backyard Brawl. Quick look ahead to this coming week where they're going to host Tennessee. What we expect Pat Narduzzi to talk about at his weekly press conference today. We got to look around the ACC, or at least the Coastal Division, and see what Pitt's other opponents did this week. We've got rankings watch. With this being kind of a unique week, the AP poll won't come out until Tuesday. It won't come out until tomorrow because Clemson plays tonight. And so there isn't any rankings movement now, but we can talk about what we think might happen or where we think Pitt might end up when the new poll comes out tomorrow. So we got a lot to cover. We got a lot to get to, and I was like I said, I was just getting excited as I was putting this together because I was like, yeah, we're gonna be able to do this every week. We're gonna have lots of stuff to talk about every Monday, and then going forward through the week, and we'll have plenty this week. We'll have recruiting talk this week. We'll have Tennessee previews this week. So hit on some of the main topics regarding Pitt this week, as we kind of go through the week, Monday through Friday. And of course, you can subscribe right there to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/PantherLairCom. Hit that subscribe button, and you'll always know when we post a new Morning Pit video. You also know when we go live. So this Wednesday night, when we have the Panther Lair show at 8:30, you'll get a notification to let you know that we are live. You need to tune in and get ready to join the conversation. Or when we have our post-game show after the Tennessee game on Saturday, I don't know what time we're going to start. It depends on what time I leave the stadium, get back here to the offices, and sit down and fire up the YouTube live stream. I can't tell you a specific time, but if you subscribe to our YouTube channel, you hit that button, you get your notification on your phone, it'll tell you, hey, time to tune in. Panther Lair show is going live. Get in, grab a beer, join the conversation. So do that. Subscribe to our YouTube channel. Make sure you like this video because that helps us continue to grow. And it's been a lot of fun over these first few weeks of doing these Morning Pit shows. I hope you're enjoying it. I know I am, and I'm looking forward to another week. So as we get started here, I think a few continuing thoughts. I don't want to say closing thoughts because it's ongoing conversations that we've been having since Thursday night, and we'll continue to have probably for a few weeks, if not a few months. And certainly the next few days as we move through this week and kind of wait for the next game. Continuing thoughts from the Backyard Brawl. I think the more I've thought about it, the more I've looked at it, kind of looked at different clips from the game, look at different numbers from the game, continue to sort of consider what we saw that night. I mean, the first impressions, particularly early in the game, were about this offense. When they go out there and they punt on the first drive, 3 and out for a -3 yard loss, they drive down the field for 11 plays, go 73 yards and have to settle for a field goal. They punt on the next one, they fumble, they have another 3 and out. They have that rough drive in the second half, in the fourth quarter with, back-to-back, sacks on 2 out of 3 plays. There was a lot to be concerned about. What seemed to be a heavy run-pass balance in favor of the run, which was a stark contrast to what Mark Whipple did and what was so successful last season. But then, there's stuff where you sit down at the end of the game and you look at the box score and you say, okay, so they ran the ball. They had, Pitt had 38 rushes and 24 passes. Why would they be, How that's too imbalanced. You can't win in 2022 with 38 rushes and 22 passes or 24 passes. That you can't win in modern college football like that. It's Stone Age prehistoric stuff. Pat Narduzzi's being too conservative. Frank Cignetti is running wani ball. You can't win like this. 38 rushing attempts and 24 pass attempts in a game that you end up winning by 1 touchdown on a pick 6. That's not good enough. And you're right. If they ran the ball 38 times and passed it 24, that's not good enough. You're correct. But that's also not entirely the whole story. All right? Those are just the raw numbers. Put them in a little context. All right? 38 rushing attempts. First of all, 2 of those were kneel downs at the end of the game. All right? We're down to 36. Then you have 7 rushing attempts for Kedon Slovis. 5 of those are sacks, called pass plays. And the other 2 were scrambles. Again, plays that were called in as passes. So you're taking those 7 plus the 2 kneel downs out of the 38. You're at 29 rushing attempts. And now we take those 7 Kedon Slovis rushing attempts, the 5 sacks and the 2 scrambles, add those to the pass attempts. Because those are actually called in as pass plays. And you're now at 31 passes and 29 rushes. It's a pretty balanced approach that actually favors the pass. Now, if you want to tell me that they waited too long to dive into the pass, if you want to tell me that they should have been in the shotgun more, and I definitely think there's something to be said about that, and we'll get into that either today or this week, I think. I would agree about some of those things. I think they did need to be a little more aggressive with the pass than they were with the run. They did need to work out of the shotgun earlier in the game than they did instead of waiting until the end when they went into the shotgun 18 of the final 20 snaps in the game. I think they needed to make some of those changes in their approach. Ideally, they wouldn't have come into the game with that approach, but I think they needed to make some of those changes in their approach sooner than they did, and maybe they would have had a little bit more success possibly in the first half. Now, here's what I would say about that, though. Okay? Because they did run the ball, or they did throw the ball and call more pass plays in the second half than they did in the first. They were more aggressive with the passing game in the second half than they were in the first. They had 11 pass plays in the fourth quarter. They had 7 in the first quarter. 5 in the second quarter, 8 in the third quarter, and then 11 in the fourth quarter. So you're looking at 19 passing plays in the second half as opposed to 12 in the first half. So maybe getting into the pass a little bit more in the first half, maybe making that shift could have had a little more, maybe would have led to a little bit more success. But here's what I would say, though. They made that adjustment at halftime. They came out, went into the shotgun more, threw from the shotgun more, and like I say, went into the shotgun 18 of their final 20 snaps. Those are adjustments. And we always talk, sometimes blindly, sometimes without any actual information to back it up, about how they don't make adjustments at halftime. They didn't make good adjustments. They need to make better adjustments. We talk about this stuff from the outside like we have any clue what we're saying. And there's a select few among us who might actually know what they're talking about. But for most of us, we're looking at it and saying, well, you stunk in the first half and you stunk in the second half. You didn't make very good adjustments. Adjustments. Well, I can look at those numbers and I can see what kind of plays they called and what kind of formations they used and see that they were in the shotgun far more in the second half than they were in the first half. I can see that they were in the shotgun 18 of the final 20 snaps of the game, not counting the 2 kneel downs. And I can say that's an adjustment. All right. I can't tell you if they were what kind of routes they were running or what kind of changes they made in the blocking schemes. I'm not smart enough to say those things, and I'm not going to pretend that I know. But I can tell you they went into the shotgun a lot more in the second half, and I can tell you that it worked. And I can tell you that I, personally, am choosing to extrapolate from all that Frank Cignetti came out of this game, and I think I talked about this Thursday night. It's hard to remember what I talked about at 2 o'clock in the morning on Thursday. But I am willing to extrapolate that Frank Cignetti came out of this game thinking, all right, I got a lot of valuable information about my quarterback, about what he likes to do, about what he does best, and about the kind of things that can make him most comfortable and set him up best for success. Because I think that's what happened in the second half. I think when you look at Kedon Slovis' performance in the second half, is better than the first. And again, I don't think his performance was bad overall. I think you saw some of the natural physical tools. I don't think he felt the pocket very well. I don't think he handled the pressure very well. I think he held onto the ball too long in a number of instances. But he also went 16 of 24 for 308 and touchdown and no interceptions. Now, he should have had an interception. Should have, but didn't. He benefited from a long catch and run from Jared Wayne and a long catch and run from Rodney Hammond, but yeah, not every pass you throw is not all of your passing yards are going to be air yards. The idea is you get the ball, you execute the play, you break the huddle, you execute the play, you get the ball to your playmaker and let him make a play. That's what a good quarterback does. And Kedon Slovis did that a lot, particularly in the second half. Completed his final 5 passes of the game, including the game-winning, or not the game-winning, but the game-tying touchdown. I think overall it was a good game for Kedon Slovis, and it's encouraging to see the kind of changes that they made in the second half, because I think I think that should give you some optimism going forward that Frank Cignetti has a better idea of what he wants to do with Kedon Slovis. He worked with him all through spring camp, worked with him all through the summer, but now he's actually been in a game with him and seen how Kedon Slovis handles that live pressure. What do coaches say? When the bullets are flying. Well, they were on Wednesday night, or on Thursday night. The bullets were flying. And I think Cignetti came out, like I say, this is the phrase I keep coming back to in my head when I think about this, is I think Cignetti came out of that game with a lot of valuable information about his quarterback. And we'll see how he puts that information in action throughout this week, heading into a huge game against Tennessee on Saturday. I mean, just an absolutely huge game. I think Tennessee looks like a team on the rise, and it's going to be a real challenge for Pitt. It's going to be a game where they're going to need to be able to score. And they put up 31 points on offense in this game against West Virginia. That's good. I think they're going to need to really have their sights set on 40 in this, against Tennessee. Not that I doubt Pitt's defense, but we'll certainly talk about the defense throughout the week. Not that I doubt Pitt's defense. I just think they're going to give up some plays. I think they're going to make plays. I think the defensive line is going to have more sacks than they had against West Virginia. I think the defensive backs will continue to play well, but they're going to get beat on plays. And you're going to need to be able to score to respond to that. We'll see, like I say, what Cignetti learned from this game, what Slovis learned from this game, and how they put it into action going forward. We'll also find out if they're going to have Rodney Hammond available for this game. Don't really know what's going to happen in that situation. Obviously suffered an injury late in the game. Had to come out. He ended up talking to the media after the game, which is generally a good sign, although he did have a boot on his foot, which is generally not a good sign. I think this week it's probably, I can't assume anything. I don't know what's going to happen. I'm sort of operating under the assumption that we're probably not going to see Rodney Hammond this week, but we'll find out. That guy right there, Izzy Abanikanda, after a pretty middling performance carrying the ball, 8 carries for 15 yards. It's not really getting anybody excited with that, but he did have a pretty exciting touchdown play, a reception, and he needs... if Rodney Hammond can't play, obviously the bulk of this work is going to fall on Izzy Abanikanda, and he's going to need to look more like he did last season than he did last week. So we'll see what happens there. But a huge opportunity, though, if Pitt's able to beat Tennessee, get a win over an SEC team a week after beating a Big 12 team, there's going to be a real opportunity to move up. I think there's going to be a real opportunity to move up in the polls. Those rankings this week won't come out until tomorrow. I'm not really sure Pitt's going to move from number 17. Looking at what happened around them, I don't think they're going to really climb up. Number 16, Miami thumped Bethune-Cookman. Michigan State won at 15. Number 14, USC crushed whoever they play. They scored like 60-some points. NC State will be interesting to watch. NC State is number 13. They barely squeaked by East Carolina in a game that they very well could have and maybe should have lost. They did not look like winners in that game, although they ended up with more points, and they won 21-20. But all the hype and excitement for NC State being the darling of the ACC, the Cinderella story that was going to potentially come out of the conference, and maybe somebody even put them in their playoff picks or something like that. Well, that bloom is off that rose now. NC State's got a lot of work to do. Do they fall though? Even after an ugly win, a win that looked like they should have lost, do they fall? And do they fall far enough for Pitt to climb out of the 17 hole? I don't think so. I guess the other team to watch is Oregon. They got crushed. They were number 11. They got crushed by number 3 Georgia. Are they going to fall far enough? Are either one of those teams, Oregon or NC State, going to fall far enough for Pitt to make a move out of 17? I don't think so. Unfortunately, the one possibility for movement, and it depends, Arkansas beat Cincinnati. Arkansas was 19, Cincinnati was 23 or 24. Does Arkansas jump 3 spots for beating a ranked team? That might be a possibility that Pitt drops to 18. Pitt played a Power 5 opponent at home and won. Arkansas played Cincinnati and won. Did Arkansas look that much better than Pitt that they jump over them in the polls? I'm inclined to say no. I think that whole group in the teens there pretty much stands pat where they are. Maybe USC jumps NC State. But I don't think there's a lot, really. There's just not a lot of opportunities for movement. But in week 2, we'll look at what some of the other games are this week, games to watch around the conference and around the country. We'll look at that later in the week. We'll get into that. But there'll be an opportunity for Pitt, I think, now. With playing another Power 5 opponent, playing Tennessee. But it's gonna be a real fight. And like I say, we'll have a lot to talk about this week as far as that goes. Around the Coastal, I figure we can take a quick look around the Coastal each week to see what everybody else in the league did. This week we start with Duke, 30-0 win over Temple, and it's just Temple. It was a home game. But Riley Leonard went through for 328 and 2 touchdowns, ran for like 60-some yards. The quarterback, Riley Leonard, saw a little bit of him in the game against Pitt last season. How about Duke? First shutout against an FBS team since 1989. So like 33 years since the last time they shut out an FBS opponent. 30-0. I'm not getting on the Duke train, but that's not what I expected Duke to do. I didn't expect Riley Leonard to throw for 300, and I didn't expect them to shut anybody out. So who knows? Why not Duke? Let's maybe Duke makes a push into the top 2 or 3 or 4 or so of the Coastal, as opposed to being perennially in the bottom. Miami blew out Bethune-Cookman 70-13. That game doesn't really matter. The only thing notable there is Henry Parrish. You remember Henry Parrish? Committed to Pitt in the same class as Izzy Abanikanda. No. Wait, what class was he in? Yeah, he was in the 2020 class with Izzy Abanikanda, and they were going to take 2 running backs. They were going to take Abanikanda and Parrish. And Parrish ended up decommitting. He went to Ole Miss. Now he transferred. He's at Miami. Ran for 108 yards and 3 touchdowns. So, let's see what happens with Henry Parrish there. North Carolina. This was the one I think a lot of people were watching and not necessarily rooting against the ACC, but yeah, maybe. 63-61 over App State. A game, like the NC State game with East Carolina, a game they should have lost. There was a time there where it looked like the ACC was going to have 3 losses to non-Power 5 opponents in the first weekend. They ended up with only 1, but it looked like there was a real chance they would end up at 3. North Carolina barely held on, 63-61. They could score. We always know they can score. They're always going to be able to score, but they cannot defend worth a lick. I know they shut out Pitt in the second half last season in that game to force overtime, but North Carolina just still cannot defend. For all that great recruiting, defense is just totally suspect. Virginia, 34-17 over Richmond. Nothing really to write home about there. 17-point win over Richmond. Brennan Armstrong, though. 105 yards on the ground. His second career 100-yard rushing game. And I think Virginia as a whole had like 259 rushing yards. Are they going to be a rush team this year? Or are they still going to be throwing the ball 6,000 times for 500 yards every game? Keep an eye on that offense there for Virginia. Virginia Tech, though. Friday night. Everybody's high on the ACC got a non-conference Power 5 win, man, with Pitt and West Virginia. All right. Well, here comes the Hokies. Friday night, they lose to Old Dominion 20-17. Grant Wells, apparently, if you get the quarterback who led Conference USA in interceptions last year, if you get him to transfer to your school, he might throw interceptions. Grant Wells had 4 picks against Old Dominion. Not pretty. And not good for the Hokies. And it was, I think I was on something preseason. I was on maybe a Twitter space with like David Hale and Andre Adelson, from ESPN. I think that's what it was. And they were going around the Coastal, and the Duke guy, Stephen Wiseman, went first, and he was talking about how Duke hopes to win 3 or 4 games. Well, they got one. They're quarter of the way there. And then after that was me, and then following me was David Teal, great veteran reporter out of Virginia. He was on to talk about Virginia Tech and Virginia. And as he talked about the Hokies, he was talking about getting to a bowl. That was the goal. That would be a good season if Virginia Tech can be bowl eligible. You start off with a loss to Old Dominion, you are putting yourself behind the 8 ball of at least if even getting to 6 wins. Because now you need to go 6-5. You need to win one more than you lose over the next 11 games. Good luck, Hokies. And then the Coastal will wrap it up tonight. Georgia Tech versus Clemson in Atlanta. I'm not going to count on the Coastal getting another win there. So Pitt, Duke, Miami, Carolina, Virginia, your winners in the Coastal this week. Virginia Tech, your loser in the Coastal, and Georgia Tech pretty likely to join them, taking on Clemson. Of course, you also got to keep an eye on Syracuse and Louisville, 2 Atlantic opponents for Pitt, and they happen to play each other in the opening week. Syracuse hosted Louisville and beat Louisville, interestingly enough. And, mostly it was Syracuse's defense. I think they held Louisville to 1 touchdown. I think Syracuse has had a good defense for a while. I think they've sort of built a pretty strong defensive line and a pretty solid secondary. They've given Pitt problems over the years. It's been a pretty close game the past few years against Syracuse, and so I'm not too surprised to see the defense step up there. And then Garrett Schrader and Sean Tucker both ran really well. I don't know how far that's going to get them this season, relying on the defense and those 2 guys running. I've only heard for the past 4 days that if you try and have a run-heavy offense or a run-first offense, you're not going to win in modern-day college football. So we'll find out if Syracuse can pull it off. But really the bigger question is Louisville bad? Might be. You go up to Syracuse and you only score 1 touchdown. Malik Cunningham didn't play very well. And I heard some people suggest in the preseason that Malik Cunningham was overrated, that he wasn't really as good as people were making him out to be. And I was guilty of this as well. I mean, like last season, I was like, look, we're all talking about Pickett and Armstrong and Van Dyke and Sam Howell and the other great quarterbacks in the ACC. But Malik Cunningham, man, he's right up there with those guys. Well, he wasn't in week 1. He really didn't do anything against Syracuse. Got kind of shut down. Well, let's see if that continues. I wasn't as concerned about Pitt's chances of stopping Malik Cunningham. I think they've traditionally done well. This defense under Pat Narduzzi has traditionally done well against those kind of quarterbacks, against running quarterbacks who are going to test you that way. But I thought he would do better, against Syracuse. Even though I said I have a lot of respect for Syracuse's defense, I thought Malik Cunningham would perform a little bit better than he did. Yeah. So that's going to be interesting. Because that was one of those games, the game at Louisville, we all kind of circled as, all right, there's Tennessee and Miami. Those are the big, dangerous games of potential losses. And you got to kind of keep an eye on at Carolina and at Louisville. Those 2 road games in conference are going to be tough. Well, Carolina gave up 61 to App State. Louisville got shut down by Syracuse. Week 1, man. Week 1 is weird. You never really know what you're, you never know what it means for the rest of the season. Certainly, if you're Pitt, you're hoping to make some serious improvements. Over the course of, from between week 1 and week 2, it's a, favorite coach's cliche is that you make your biggest improvements from week 1 to week 2. We'll see. We'll see if some of these other teams can make improvements as well. We'll finish on that note as far as, the last topic here is what does Pitt need to focus on this week? What are the key improvements for Pitt to make this week? And I think there's really 2 big things. One is honing in on kind of what I talked about earlier with Frank Cignetti needs to hone in on Kedon Slovis, what he does well, where he needs to improve, where he's most comfortable, and how they can best sort of deploy the passing attack. I think there was a lot of learning that was done in that game on Thursday night. I think there were a lot of lessons that came out of that game, and not just for the players, but also for the coaches. I think Frank Cignetti has a much better idea of who Kedon Slovis is, and what he can do, and how he operates best. But on the flip side, I think the key is really the outside linebackers and those run fits and how they play against the run. I mean, Pat Narduzzi was beside himself with the way West Virginia was able to attack with the outside run, the outside zone runs, and that kind of thing with C.J. McDonald, or C.J. Donaldson, the freshman tight end who went 7 carries for $125. And he really kind of put it on the outside linebackers. He said he thought SirVocea Dennis was good, but they have 2, he called them young new starters at outside linebacker. Bengali Kamara is a junior. Shane Simon is a redshirt senior, I think. But they're both new starters in this defense. Bengali Kamara has never played as many snaps as he did on Thursday night. Shane Simon's making his first start playing for Pitt. Those guys are going to have a learning curve. And I think we knew they would have a learning curve. We really saw it on some of those carries where Donaldson got outside and those guys were either out of position or didn't fit the way they needed to fit to sort of drive the ball carrier back to where he could be tackled for a minimal gain, which is what this defense has been really good at for so long. And this is one of those cases, and I said this Thursday night, where I'm giving the coaches the benefit of the doubt. I'm pretty sure they're going to figure out the run defense. I'm not too worried about this staff solving the run defense. They've done it so well for so long with a bunch of different casts of players that I'm not too concerned about that. I think they'll get those issues ironed out. It might not be perfect this week, but it'll be better. I'm fairly confident it'll be better. And then I think it'll keep improving as the season goes on. So I think those are really the keys this week. What makes Slovis comfortable? How to better teach the outside linebackers. And I think those will be the focal points. And then they'll see what they can do. All right. Pat Narduzzi has his weekly press conference today. We will be recapping that and breaking it down and any changes to the depth chart. On tomorrow's Morning Pit, we'll have previews of Tennessee throughout the week. We'll look around the country, the key games that you need to keep an eye on over the weekend. We'll keep talking about different issues. I talked a lot about Kedon Slovis today. We'll talk about some of the defensive stuff tomorrow and over the next few days. It's going to be fun. Every morning, we're going to bring this to you, the Morning Pit. So like this video, subscribe right there to our YouTube channel, youtube.com/PantherLairCom, and stay tuned to the website, panther-lair.com, pittsburgh.rivals.com. It's the most comprehensive source of Pitt sports news on the internet. Football, basketball, recruiting, you find it all at pantherlair.com. And of course, message boards, where you can interact with hundreds and thousands of your closest Pitt fan friends. Panther-lair.com, pittsburgh.rivals.com. You go there, you read all the content, you go on the message boards and talk about it. We'll keep pumping out the content. You keep digesting it and discussing it. It's a good setup we have. So thanks for checking this video out. Again, make sure you hit that like button, hit the subscribe button. We really appreciate that. Have a great Monday. Have a great Labor Day. And we'll talk to you on Tuesday for the Morning Pit right here on youtube.com/PantherLairCom.